I'm Ethan Mitchell, 32, and until last New Year's Eve, I paid for everything my younger brother Ryan and his wife Amber needed. Their mortgage. Their utilities. Their car payments. I thought that's what family does. I stood outside their door that night, arms full of gifts, excited to celebrate together. Then I heard those words that changed everything. Get lost. Paying the bills doesn't make you worthy. My brother actually barked that through the door. Something inside me snapped. Then freeze without a dime from me, I replied, already mentally canceling every payment. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I finally stood up for myself after years of being used. Growing up in Rochester, Minnesota wasn't anything special. Mom and Dad, Harold and Betty Mitchell, worked hard to give Ryan and me a decent middle-class life. Dad managed a local hardware store, and Mom taught 3rd grade at Rochester Elementary. We weren't rich, but we never went without. I was 4 years older than Ryan, so naturally, I became his protector, his guide, sometimes his second parent when Mom and Dad worked late. We had the typical brother relationship, fought over video games, tattled on each other for stealing cookies, pushed each other into the lake during summer vacations at our grandparents' cabin. Normal stuff. But underneath all that typical sibling rivalry, we were close. When Ryan got bullied in 5th grade, I was the one who taught him how to stand up for himself. When I needed help asking Jessica Parker to prom, Ryan was the one who delivered my embarrassingly poetic invitation letter. Our lives changed forever 10 years ago. I was 22, fresh out of college with a computer science degree and acceptance into a prestigious graduate program at MIT. Ryan was 18, just graduated high school and headed to the University of Minnesota that fall. Then came the call that derailed everything. Mom and Dad were driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver crossed the center line. They died on impact. I still remember standing in the funeral home with Ryan, both of us in ill-fitting black suits, shaking hands with what felt like the entire town. My graduate school dreams evaporated that day. Ryan needed me, and there was no way I was leaving him alone to navigate his grief while trying to start college. I deferred my MIT acceptance and took a job at a local IT consulting firm. The pay was decent, enough to cover the remaining mortgage payments on our childhood home and to help with Ryan's tuition. He moved into the dorms as planned, but every weekend he came home, and we figured out our new normal together. Those first 2 years were brutal but straightforward. We both worked through our grief by staying busy. I threw myself into my career, working overtime whenever possible to build savings. Ryan buried himself in his studies, maintaining a 3.8 GPA in his business program. I was so proud of him, watching him push through his pain to build a future. Every sacrifice I made felt worth it. By the time Ryan graduated, I had worked my way up to senior consultant. The money was good, really good. I'd paid off our parents' house and had started investing. Ryan had job offers, but nothing that excited him. Just temporary, he'd say about each position he took. Until I find what I really want to do. 3 years ago, Ryan met Amber Lewis at a friend's wedding. She was stunning, charming, and had this way of making Ryan light up like I hadn't seen since before our parents died. Within 6 months, they were engaged. I was thrilled for him, finally, some real happiness in his life. The wedding was lavish, far more expensive than what they could afford on Ryan's inconsistent income. I covered most of it without complaint. What else was I going to spend my money on? My own romantic life had stalled out years ago. 2 serious relationships had ended because, as both women put it, I was too focused on being Ryan's parent instead of his brother. Maybe they were right, but what choice did I have? After the wedding, Ryan and Amber struggled to find a place they could afford. Rentals in Rochester had skyrocketed, and Ryan was between jobs again. So I made what seemed like the obvious choice at the time. I bought them a 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood. Just until you get on your feet, I told them. No rush to pay me back. That was the beginning of the pattern. Ryan would find a job, then lose it or quit because it wasn't fulfilling, or his boss was out to get him. Amber never seemed to hold a steady job either, though she always had perfect nails, new clothes, and the latest iPhone. Their bills started piling up, and gradually, I took over paying them all. The mortgage, the utilities, the car payments, insurance, credit cards, even their cell phone bills. I told myself it was temporary, that family takes care of family. Mom and Dad would have wanted me to help. Meanwhile, I lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, drove a reliable but aging Subaru, and rarely took vacations. My colleagues would show pictures of their trips to Europe or their new boats, and I'd smile and say I was saving for something special. That something special was my brother's life. The holidays were always the hardest. I'd spend them alone or with friends who pitted the single guy with no family to celebrate with. Ryan and Amber always seemed to have other plans, her family's gathering or a trip with friends. I'd drop off gifts and try not to feel the sting when they didn't reciprocate. But I kept telling myself that this was enough, that knowing my little brother was taken care of would fill the emptiness in my chest. That paying his bills somehow kept our parents' memory alive. That someday, he'd get back on his feet, and we'd be equals again, friends again. I was wrong. So very wrong. Looking back, I can pinpoint when things started to change. It was about 8 months before that fateful New Year's Eve. Ryan called on a Tuesday night, his voice tight with panic. He'd been laid off again. Budget cuts, he said, and they wouldn't be able to make their car payment. No problem, I said immediately. I've got you covered. Do you need help with anything else? There was a pause then. Well, actually, the electric bill is pretty high this month too. And we're a little behind on the credit card. I transferred the money without question. 2 days later, Ryan posted photos on Instagram of a new gaming system and Amber showing off designer sunglasses. Treating ourselves? The caption read. #self-care. Something twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Maybe they'd bought those things before the layoff. Maybe they were gifts from friends. I didn't want to be the guy who monitored every purchase after giving money. That wasn't support, it was control. But the incidents kept piling up. Ryan needed money for groceries, then posted about the amazing steakhouse dinner they had with friends. Amber's car needed emergency repairs, but then she was driving a newer model. Every time I visited their house, I noticed new furniture, expensive electronics, bottles of premium liquor. My best friend Marcus finally said something after listening to me rationalize their behavior for the 100th time. We were having beers at his place when I mentioned needing to reschedule our planned hiking trip because Ryan needed help with their property taxes. Dude, Marcus said, setting his beer down firmly. Do you realize you've been supporting them entirely for almost 3 years now? This isn't temporary anymore. This is their lifestyle. And you're funding it. What am I supposed to do? I asked. They're struggling. Are they, though? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me Ryan's latest social media posts. A weekend trip to Chicago, shopping bags from Gucci, cocktails at a rooftop bar. Does this look like struggling to you? I made excuses. Ryan deserved some happiness after losing our parents. Amber came from a wealthy family and had certain expectations. Maybe the Chicago trip was a gift from her parents. But Marcus's words stayed with me, and I started paying closer attention. I noticed how Ryan's tone changed when he called, warm and engaging when he needed something, short and irritated when I just wanted to chat. I noticed how Amber would text me directly with financial requests but ignore my messages about family get-togethers. In April, I invited them to dinner to celebrate my promotion to regional director. Ryan texted an hour before to cancel. Amber wasn't feeling well. That night, their location tags showed them at a concert 2 hours away. In June, I tried to have a heart-to-heart with Ryan. I drove to their house unannounced, something I rarely did out of respect for their privacy. Ryan answered the door in basketball shorts, clearly annoyed at the interruption. Can we talk? I asked. Just brother to brother? He glanced back into the house. Now's not great, Ethan. We've got plans. It won't take long. I just feel like we haven't really connected lately. Ryan sighed dramatically. Look, I appreciate everything you do, but we're kind of busy right now. From inside, I heard Amber call. Who is it, babe? Just Ethan, he replied, not bothering to turn around. Just Ethan. Like I was a door-to-door salesman, not the person paying for the roof over their heads. I'll call you tomorrow, he said, already closing the door. He never called. In September, I got a call from an unknown number that turned out to be Ryan and Amber's mortgage company. There had been a payment issue, they said. The automatic payment from my account had gone through as usual, but then it had been reversed by Ryan, who had told them he would be handling the payments from now on. Except he hadn't made any payment. When I confronted him, Ryan claimed it was a misunderstanding. He'd been trying to take over the payments as a surprise for me, to start paying his own way, but there had been an issue with their bank. It sounded plausible enough, and part of me so desperately wanted to believe he was finally taking responsibility that I accepted the explanation without much question. I paid the outstanding amount plus the late fee and went back to my automatic payments. 2 weeks later, I ran into Ryan's former boss at the grocery store. Making small talk, I mentioned how unfortunate the layoffs had been. He looked confused. What layoffs? We haven't had any staff reductions this year. But Ryan was laid off in February, I said. The man shook his head. Ryan quit. Said he had a better opportunity lined up. We were sorry to lose him. He was doing good work. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I logged into my online banking and pulled up a complete history of all the money I'd given Ryan over the past year. The total made me physically ill. Over $87,000, not including the mortgage and car payments. That was more than many families' entire annual income. What had it been spent on? Where was it all going? And why had Ryan lied about being laid off? The final straw came a week before New Year's Eve. Ryan called with his voice cracking, saying they were going to have their electricity shut off because of an overdue bill. I was already transferring the money when I got an email notification, a thank you for my recent purchase. Except I hadn't bought anything. It turned out Ryan had saved my credit card information from when I had ordered them groceries during a snowstorm. He'd been using it for small purchases here and there, nothing huge enough to catch my attention among my regular expenses. But it had added up to thousands over several months. That was when I decided enough was enough. I would confront them on New Year's Eve, traditionally a time for fresh starts. I would bring evidence of what I'd discovered, but also gifts and champagne as a peace offering. I would propose a plan to help them become financially independent, job counseling for Ryan, a reasonable timeline for taking over their own expenses, maybe even financial literacy classes. I truly believed we could work it out. That my brother would see how his actions were damaging our relationship. That we could start the new year with honesty and a path forward. I had no idea how catastrophically wrong I was. New Year's Eve started with such hope. I spent the morning preparing, not just mentally but with tangible symbols of my commitment to Ryan. I wrapped their gifts with extra care, a leather portfolio for Ryan's job interviews, a spa gift certificate for Amber, and the big one, a framed photo of our parents with a note promising to help them create a financial independence plan that would make Mom and Dad proud. I also prepared a folder with printouts, evidence of Ryan's lies and unauthorized charges, yes, but also resources. Contact information for a career counselor I knew. A template for a monthly budget. Information about a financial literacy course at the community center. This wasn't about punishment. It was about healing and moving forward. I even called ahead. Hey Ryan, I'd love to stop by tonight to drop off some New Year's gifts. Maybe have a glass of champagne to toast to a fresh start. Sure, he said, sounding distracted. We'll be home. Come by around 8. I arrived exactly at 8, arms full of neatly wrapped packages and that folder tucked under my arm. The first sign something was off. The driveway was full of cars I didn't recognize, and bass-heavy music pulsed from inside the house. Ryan hadn't mentioned they were having a party. I parked on the street and made my way up the walkway, noticing empty beer bottles already littering the front lawn of the house I had bought. Through the large front window, I could see at least 15 people crowded into the living room, drinks in hand, many dressed in sequins and dressy attire. I didn't recognize a single face. I rang the doorbell twice before someone finally opened it, a guy in his 20s with a man bun and a drink sloshing in his hand. "You delivering something?" he asked, eyeing the packages. "I'm Ethan, Ryan's brother," I explained. "Oh." He turned and yelled into the party noise. "Ryan! Some dude says he's your brother!" I stood awkwardly in the open doorway, either invited in nor turned away, watching as the partiers continued their conversations, ignoring me completely. Finally, I spotted Ryan emerging from the kitchen, Amber close behind him. They both had drinks in hand, and Amber wore a new-looking gold sequin dress that probably cost more than my entire outfit. As Ryan approached, I could tell immediately that he wasn't happy to see me. His smile was forced, his posture stiff. "Ethan, hey. Forgot you were coming by. I called this morning," I reminded him. "You said 8 would work." Right. He glanced back at the party, then stepped onto the porch, partially closing the door behind him as if to prevent me from seeing inside. "Could we maybe do this another time? We've got people over." I hesitated, then decided to push forward. "It'll just take a minute. I brought your gifts, and I was hoping we could talk briefly." Ryan sighed. "Now's not really a good time for a talk, Ethan." From behind the door, I heard a male voice call out, "Is that your ATM brother?" followed by laughter. Ryan's face flushed red, but he didn't correct whoever had said it. "My ATM brother?" I repeated quietly. "Is that what you call me to your friends?" "They're just joking around," Ryan said dismissively. "Don't make a big deal out of it." Something shifted inside me. "Actually, Ryan, we need to talk now. I know about the credit card charges. I know you lied about being laid off. I know about all of it." His expression hardened. "You're seriously going to do this right now? On New Year's Eve, in front of our friends? Your friends seem to already know plenty about me and my money." I replied, my voice getting louder. "Funny how you didn't mention this party when I called. Were you hoping I'd just drop the gifts off and leave so you could keep partying on my dime?" The door opened wider, and Amber appeared at Ryan's side, her arms snaking possessively around his waist. "Is there a problem?" she asked coolly. "No problem," Ryan said. "Ethan was just leaving." "I'm not leaving until we talk about this," I insisted, holding up the folder. "About the thousands of dollars you've taken from me while lying to my face." Several party guests were now watching the drama unfold. I could see them nudging each other, whispering behind their hands. My humiliation burned hot, but I stood my ground. Ryan stepped forward, his voice low and menacing. "Get lost, Ethan. Paying the bills doesn't make you worthy of respect. It doesn't give you the right to control our lives or embarrass us in front of our friends." The words hit me like physical blows. After everything I'd sacrificed. After all the love I'd shown. This was how my only family saw me, not as a brother but as a walking wallet. "Worthy?" I repeated, my voice breaking. "I've given you everything. Everything. I gave up graduate school. I've lived in a tiny apartment so you could have this house. I've never asked for anything in return except basic appreciation. We never asked for any of it." Amber cut in. "You offered. And now you're throwing it in our faces because we don't want to live by your rules. Because we don't bow down in gratitude every time you pay a bill." "My rules?" I was nearly shouting now. "What rules? Don't lie to me? Don't steal from me? Those aren't rules, that's basic human decency." Ryan's face twisted with contempt. "You think you're so much better than us. Poor responsible Ethan, sacrificing everything for his screw-up little brother. You love it, don't you? The control. The moral high ground. Well, we're done with your guilt trips." "Guilt trips?" I was incredulous. When have I ever made you feel guilty? Name one time. Instead of answering, Ryan grabbed the gifts from my arms and dropped them unceremoniously on the porch. We don't need your presence, and we don't need your judgment. We're adults, not charity cases. Adults pay their own bills, I shot back. That's when Ryan said the words that severed the last thread between us. Then freeze without a dime from me, I snapped, the coldness in my voice surprising even me. Let's see how adult you feel when the electricity gets shut off for real this time. When the bank forecloses on this house. When your credit cards get declined because I'm not there to bail you out. I could see a flicker of panic in Ryan's eyes, quickly replaced by bravado. Fine by me. We never needed your handouts anyway. We'll see about that, I said, turning to leave. Then I stopped and turned back. Oh, and Ryan? Check your credit score in a few days. I'll be removing my name from every account. Every single one. I walked back to my car with my shoulders squared, ignoring the curious stares of the partiers who had gathered at the windows. It wasn't until I was safely inside with the doors locked that I allowed the tears to come. 10 years of sacrifice and love, dismissed as controlling. Handouts. My brother, my only family, had chosen to humiliate me rather than acknowledge his deception. As I drove home through the festive New Year's Eve traffic, past families gathering and friends celebrating, I felt more alone than I had in the decades since our parents died. But underneath the grief was something else, something unfamiliar and almost frightening in its intensity, the absolute certainty that I was done being used. The moment I got home, still in my coat, I opened my laptop and began the process of financial separation. First, I logged into my bank account and stopped every automatic payment associated with Ryan and Amber's expenses. The mortgage, the utilities, the insurance policies, the credit card minimum payments. One by one, I unchecked boxes and clicked cancel payment. With each cancellation, I felt a conflicting rush of emotions. Guilt. Was I really going to let my brother lose his home? Relief, the crushing weight of supporting 3 people on one income lifting slightly from my shoulders. Righteousness, they had stolen from me, lied to me, mocked me behind my back. And yes, satisfaction, they were about to learn exactly what life without my handouts looked like. Next, I called the credit card company where I was an authorized user on Ryan's account. I had added him to my long-standing account years ago to help him build credit after a rough patch. Now I removed him, explaining to the customer service representative that my card had been used without permission. Would you like to dispute the charges, sir? She asked. I hesitated only briefly. Yes. Yes, I would. I spent the next hour on the phone with various financial institutions, removing Ryan as a beneficiary from my investment accounts, changing passwords on every online account I had, and even calling my HR department to remove him as my emergency contact. By midnight, as the world celebrated the start of a new year, I had systematically erased Ryan's access to my financial resources. The last call I made was to my lawyer. I left a voicemail explaining that I needed to discuss removing my name from the deed of a house and protecting myself from any potential financial claims. Then I turned off my phone, opened a bottle of scotch I'd been saving, and sat alone in my darkened apartment as fireworks lit up the sky outside. The next morning, New Year's Day, my phone was flooded with notifications. 12 missed calls from Ryan. 8 from Amber. 23 text messages ranging from confused to pleading to threatening. What happened to the electricity? The card got declined at the gas station. Call me ASAP. Turn everything back on now or I'm calling the police for theft. You can't just cut us off without warning. People are still here from the party. This isn't funny, Ethan. Fix it now. Please call me back. We need to talk about this. You're going to regret this. Amber's dad knows lawyers. I read each message but responded to none of them. Instead, I called Marcus, who answered with a groggy, hungover, "Happy New Year?" "I did it," I said simply. "I cut them off. Everything. There was a pause, then Marcus said, "Holy shit. For real? What happened?" I told him everything: the party, the ATM brother comment, the confrontation at the door. When I finished, there was silence on the line. "Marcus? You think I did the wrong thing?" "No," he said firmly. "Absolutely not. I think you did what you should have done 2 years ago. I'm just processing the fact that you actually did it. You've been taking care of him for so long, I wasn't sure you could stop." "I'm not sure I can," I admitted. "I keep checking my phone, thinking maybe I should turn the electricity back on at least. It's January in Minnesota. What if their pipes freeze?" "That's not your problem anymore," Marcus reminded me. "They're adults who made choices. Bad ones. You gave them everything, and they treated you like garbage. Let them figure it out." He was right, I knew he was right, but 10 years of being responsible for Ryan wasn't easy to shake off. Throughout that day, as their calls and texts continued, I wavered multiple times. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I should have given them warning. Maybe I should call back and work out a transition plan. Then, at 3:42 p.m., Ryan sent a text that solidified my resolve. "Fine. We don't need your money anyway. Amber's parents will help us out. They've always thought you were controlling. Don't bother coming around anymore." I stared at those words for a long time. If Amber's parents were so willing and able to help, why had that burden fallen exclusively on me for 3 years? And more importantly, if they truly didn't need my money, why were they panicking about the utilities being shut off? The next day, I returned to work, throwing myself into projects to avoid obsessing over my decision. My boss, Kevin, noticed my distraction during our team meeting. "Everything okay, Ethan?" he asked after everyone else had left the conference room. I considered giving a standard, "Fine, thanks," response, but something about Kevin's genuine concern broke through my professional facade. Before I knew it, I was telling him the whole story, about supporting Ryan since our parents died, about the extent of the financial burden I'd been carrying, about the New Year's Eve confrontation. To my surprise, Kevin didn't look shocked. He looked understanding. "I went through something similar with my brother-in-law," he said. "Not to the same extent, but the same pattern. The more I gave, the more entitled he became. It took my divorce for me to finally see how I was enabling him." "Enabling," I repeated. "That's exactly what Marcus has been telling me for years." Kevin nodded. "It's hard to see when you're in it. You think you're helping, being generous. But sometimes our help actually prevents people from growing up and dealing with consequences." His words stayed with me that day, providing unexpected comfort. I wasn't alone in this experience. I wasn't cruel for finally setting boundaries. I was just very, very late in doing so. That comfort was tested the following day when Amber showed up at my workplace. I was in a meeting when my assistant messaged me. "There's an Amber Mitchell here insisting on seeing you immediately. She seems very upset." My stomach dropped. I excused myself from the meeting and found Amber pacing the reception area, dressed impeccably as always, but with a frantic energy that drew stares from everyone nearby. "Amber," I said calmly, "this isn't appropriate." "Appropriate?" she hissed, keeping her voice low but intense. "You know what's not appropriate? Cutting off someone's heat in the middle of winter without warning. The house is freezing. Everything in the refrigerator is spoiled. We had to stay in a hotel last night." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, maintaining my composure. "But as Ryan made clear, you don't want my help anymore." "This isn't about help," she snapped. "This is about basic decency. You can't just pull the rug out from under people." I noticed several of my colleagues watching our exchange with interest. "Let's talk somewhere private," I suggested, gesturing toward an empty meeting room. Once inside, Amber's controlled facade crumbled. "You have to turn everything back on," she pleaded. "Just until we can figure something out. My parents are in Arizona for the winter. They can't help right away. So they're not actually offering to take over all the bills?" I asked pointedly. She flushed. They would if they could. But that's not the point. The point is you're being vindictive. No, I corrected her. I'm simply stopping the support that you and Ryan made clear you don't want or appreciate. You called it controlling. You mocked me to your friends. Ryan told me to get lost. He didn't mean it like that, she insisted. He was just embarrassed because you showed up during our party talking about money. The party you were throwing in a house I pay for, with alcohol I assume I also paid for? I shook my head. I've spoken with a lawyer, Amber. I'm removing my name from the deed. The house will be yours and Ryan's, along with the mortgage responsibility. Her face paled. You can't do that. Actually, I can. I've verified it with legal counsel. And I strongly suggest you and Ryan start looking for more affordable housing immediately. Amber's expression shifted from pleading to cold fury. Ryan was right about you. You love this, the power trip. Making us beg. Well, we won't give you the satisfaction. She stood up straighter. My father will be contacting your lawyer. We've contributed to that house. We've made improvements. You can't just take it away. I almost laughed. Improvements? The last time I visited, there were holes in the drywall and wine stains on the carpet I paid for 6 months ago. We'll sue you, she threatened. For abandonment. For emotional distress. For everything. That's when I'd had enough. I opened the meeting room door. This conversation is over, Amber. Please leave before I have to call security. This isn't over. She spat as she gathered her designer purse. Not even close. True to my word, I had security escort her out. As I watched her retreating figure through the glass doors of our office building, I felt a strange calm. The threats didn't frighten me. In fact, they only confirmed that I'd made the right decision. That afternoon, I met with Jessica Barnes, my lawyer. She was a straightforward woman in her 40s who had helped me set up my will and power of attorney years ago. So, she said after listening to my situation, you want to transfer ownership of a house you've been paying for to your brother and his wife, despite their inability to afford it? When she put it that way, it did sound bizarre. I want to remove my financial responsibility for them completely, I clarified. The house, the mortgage, all of it. Jessica tapped her pen thoughtfully. You said your name is the only one on the deed? Yes. I bought it outright 3 years ago. They've never made a payment. And there's no formal rental agreement? No contract stating they would eventually take ownership? Nothing in writing, no. She nodded. Then legally, they're tenants at will. You own the house, and technically, you could evict them with proper notice according to Minnesota law. The thought made me uncomfortable. I don't want to make them homeless. I just want to separate our finances completely. I understand, Jessica said. But transferring the deed to them while keeping the mortgage in your name would be financial suicide. They've already demonstrated they can't or won't pay the bills. You'd still be liable for the mortgage, but with no control over the property. She outlined my options, none of which were simple or painless. I could sell the house and give them a portion to start fresh. I could begin formal eviction proceedings and help them find more affordable housing. I could establish a formal lease with strict payment terms. By the end of our meeting, I had a clearer picture of the complicated road ahead. This wasn't going to be a clean break. It was going to be messy, potentially ugly, and definitely painful. But I was committed to seeing it through. As I left Jessica's office, I checked my phone to find a single text from Ryan. We need to talk. On your terms. Please. It was the please that got me, the first sign of humility I'd seen from him in years. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I put my phone away without responding and drove home through the gathering darkness, wondering what new revelations tomorrow would bring. 2 weeks passed in tense silence. I didn't respond to Ryan's text, and eventually, the barrage of messages from both him and Amber slowed to a trickle, then stopped entirely. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on additional projects, anything to keep my mind occupied and away from thoughts of what might be happening at the house. I was just leaving a client meeting when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally I'd let unknown calls go to voicemail, but something compelled me to answer. "Is this Ethan Mitchell?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Grace Williams. I live next door to your brother Ryan." Her voice was hesitant, like she wasn't sure she should be making this call. I tensed immediately. "Has something happened?" "Not exactly," she said. "I'm not one to meddle in other people's business, but well, I thought you should know what's been going on over there." Grace explained that she was a retired nurse who had lived in the neighborhood for 30 years. She'd always been friendly with me when I visited Ryan and Amber, though I struggled to place her face in my memory. "The day after New Year's, they had the electricity shut off," she began. "I saw them loading suitcases into their car. They were gone for about a week. When they came back, they had a portable generator that they've been running at all hours. The noise is terrible, and I'm worried about carbon monoxide with how they've got it set up." "I'm sorry about the noise," I said automatically. "But I'm not responsible for their utilities anymore." "I understand that," Grace continued. "And honestly, after what I've seen, I don't blame you one bit. The real reason I'm calling is what happened yesterday. I saw them carrying out furniture, your furniture, if I'm not mistaken. That beautiful leather sofa you helped them move in last year? They loaded it into a pickup truck, along with the big screen TV and a bunch of other things." My stomach tightened. "They're selling the furniture?" "It appears that way. And Mr. Mitchell. Ethan, that's not all. When they first moved in, you mentioned your parents had left some family heirlooms in your care. A grandfather clock? Some silver serving pieces?" The blood drained from my face. I had indeed stored several precious family items at Ryan's house when I downsized to my apartment. The grandfather clock had been in our family for 4 generations. The silver had been our grandmother's wedding gift. "Are they still there?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "I'm afraid not," Grace said gently. "I saw Ryan carrying the clock out 2 days ago. It took 3 men to load it into the truck." I thanked Grace for the information, my mind reeling. They were selling off everything, not just furniture I had bought them, but irreplaceable family heirlooms. Items that should have been divided between us, that connected us to our parents and grandparents. After hanging up, I sat in my parked car for a long time, processing this new betrayal. Then I did something I hadn't done since the confrontation. I drove to the house. From the outside, everything looked normal, except for the steady hum of a generator around back. I parked across the street, debating whether to confront them directly. That's when I noticed the mail carrier delivering a thick stack of envelopes to their mailbox. As soon as he moved on to the next house, I walked over and checked the box. What I found shocked me even more than Grace's call. Among the stack of mail were final notices for credit cards I'd never seen before. Advertisements for payday loans. A letter from a casino's VIP program thanking Ryan for his patronage. And most troublingly, an eviction notice, not from me, but from the bank. Somehow, despite my name being on the deed, they had taken out a second mortgage that was now in default. I took the mail and drove straight to Jessica's office, calling ahead to see if she could fit me in. She reviewed the documents with a deepening frown. "This second mortgage is fraudulent," she said finally. "They forged your signature. That's a federal offense." "Are you sure?" I asked, though the signature on the paperwork was clearly an attempt at mimicking mine. "Positive. And based on these credit card statements, they've been running up massive debt for at least a year. The minimum payments you were making kept the accounts from going into collection, but they're carrying balances of over $50,000. And this casino letter." She tapped the gold embossed paper. "Ryan appears to be in their high roller program. That suggests serious gambling." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The constant need for more money. The mysterious cash withdrawals. The expensive purchases followed by pleas for bill payments. Ryan hadn't just been irresponsible, he had a gambling addiction. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. Jessica outlined a plan: report the fraud to the police, contest the second mortgage, secure the property and any remaining valuables, and most importantly, stop feeling responsible for the mess Ryan and Amber had created. I followed her advice partially. I filed the fraud report and contested the second mortgage, but I couldn't bring myself to press charges against Ryan. Despite everything, he was still my brother, and now I understood that he was sick, not just selfish. The next day, I received another call, this time from a collection agency looking for Ryan. When I explained that I wasn't Ryan and couldn't take a message, the agent became irritated. "Well, you're listed as his emergency contact, so you must know how to reach him. This is his third missed payment, and the car is going to be repossessed if he doesn't contact us immediately." I hadn't even known Ryan had financing on a new car. How deep did this deception go? Determined to get answers, I took a personal day from work and staked out the house. Around noon, I saw Ryan leave alone in a car I didn't recognize, newer and more expensive than the one I'd been making payments on. I followed at a distance as he drove to a pawn shop on the outskirts of town. Through the window, I watched as he presented several items to the clerk, items I recognized with a jolt as jewelry that had belonged to our mother. Her pearl necklace. The diamond earrings Dad had given her on their 25th anniversary. Even her wedding ring, which I thought had been buried with her. Something inside me broke. I couldn't confront him, not yet. I was too angry, too hurt. I drove back to my apartment and did something I'd been avoiding. I opened the folder of financial records I'd prepared for New Year's Eve and really studied the extent of Ryan and Amber's deception. The picture that emerged was staggering. Over 3 years, I had given them nearly $300,000 in direct payments, mortgage payments, car payments, credit card payments, and miscellaneous expenses. If I included the purchase price of the house, that figure jumped to over $650,000. More than half of everything I had earned in 10 years. But the money wasn't what hurt the most. It was the systematic betrayal. The lies. The manipulation. The way they had treated me as nothing more than an ATM while mocking me behind my back. That evening, I received a certified letter, the official eviction notice that had been sent to Ryan and Amber by the bank handling the fraudulent second mortgage. They had 30 days to vacate the property. The letter had been forwarded to me as the property owner of record. I called Jessica immediately. "If they're being evicted anyway, what happens to the house? Since your name is on the original deed and mortgage, and we've contested the second mortgage as fraudulent, you'll retain ownership," she explained. "But there will likely be legal proceedings, and the house will be tied up for some time." "And everything inside? The furniture, appliances, anything that's left?" "Technically yours, as there was never any formal agreement transferring ownership to them." I thought about the family heirlooms already sold. The furniture being carted off piece by piece. The house that I had bought with such hope, now a symbol of betrayal. "I want to go there," I decided. "Tomorrow. I want to see exactly what's left and what condition the house is in. Will you come with me? As legal counsel?" Jessica agreed, and the next morning, we met outside the house. I still had a key, but I knocked first, not wanting another confrontation like New Year's Eve. There was no answer. When we entered, I was unprepared for the state of the house. What furniture remained was damaged: cigarette burns on the couch, wine stains on the carpet, gouges in the wooden tables. The walls had holes punched through the drywall in several places. The kitchen was filthy, with moldy food still sitting in the powerless refrigerator. "My God!" Jessica murmured as we walked through the destruction. "It looks like they're deliberately damaging the property." Room by room, we documented the condition with photos. The master bedroom was the worst. The mattress was slashed, dresser drawers hung open and empty, and someone had spray-painted an obscenity on the mirror. In Ryan's home office, we found evidence of the gambling: betting slips, casino ATM receipts, printouts of online poker transactions. And in a desk drawer, a small photo album I recognized immediately. It contained the only copies of certain family photos, including the last picture ever taken of the four of us, Mom, Dad, Ryan, and me, at Ryan's high school graduation. I sat heavily in the desk chair, clutching the album. "He kept this," I said, my voice thick. "With everything he sold, everything he destroyed, he kept our family photos." Jessica squeezed my shoulder. "People with addictions are complicated, Ethan. The person who loves you enough to save these photos is the same person who forged your signature and sold your mother's wedding ring." As we prepared to leave, having changed the locks on Jessica's advice, the doorbell rang. We exchanged wary glances before I checked the peephole. It wasn't Ryan or Amber. It was Grace Williams from next door. I opened the door, and she looked relieved to see me. "Oh, Ethan, I'm so glad you're here. I saw your car and thought I should bring this over." She handed me an envelope. "It was delivered to my house by mistake yesterday. It's addressed to Ryan, but well, I thought you should have it, given everything that's happening." I thanked her and opened the envelope after she left. Inside was a letter from a rehabilitation center, confirming Ryan's intake appointment scheduled for the following week. He had reached out for help. I stared at the letter, emotions warring within me. Relief that he was seeking treatment. Anger that it had taken this much destruction to get there. Hope that maybe, someday, we could rebuild some kind of relationship. And beneath it all, a profound sadness for everything we had both lost. As Jessica and I drove away from the house, I made a decision. I would confront Ryan one more time, not to berate him or demand repayment, but to offer a different kind of help. The kind that wouldn't enable his addiction but might actually give him a chance at recovery. I just hoped I wasn't too late. 3 days later, I returned to the house alone, having confirmed through Grace that Ryan and Amber had been spotted moving more items out. I parked in the driveway this time, making no attempt to hide my presence. I wanted this confrontation. I didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, a pickup truck pulled up, Ryan behind the wheel, Amber in the passenger seat. They froze when they saw me sitting on the front steps. "The locks have been changed," I said as they approached cautiously. "And you should know I've documented the damage to the property." Ryan looked thinner than he had on New Year's Eve, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders. Amber, in contrast, looked pristine as always, though her expression was guarded. "We're just here to get our things," she said coldly. "Your things?" I repeated. "Or my things that you're selling to cover gambling debts?" Ryan's head snapped up. "How did you?" "I know everything, Ryan," I cut him off. The second mortgage. The credit card debt. The casino VIP membership. The family heirlooms you've pawned. He looked away, shame evident in every line of his body. "We needed the money," Amber said defensively. "After you cut us off without warning." "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't you dare try to blame this on me. You've been selling off furniture and valuables for months, long before I stopped the payments. I have the pawn receipts to prove it." Ryan sank down onto the steps beside me, putting his head in his hands. "I messed up, Ethan. I messed up so bad." It was the first genuine thing I'd heard from him in years. "Yes, you did," I agreed, no heat in my voice now, just weary acknowledgement. "But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because of this." I pulled out the rehabilitation center letter. Ryan's eyes widened. "How did you get that?" "It was delivered to Grace by mistake. She gave it to me." "You had no right." "I had every right," I said firmly. "You've stolen from me, lied to me, forged my signature, and destroyed my property. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here because this," I tapped the letter, "is the first responsible thing you've done in years." Amber stepped forward. "It's just a consultation. We don't have the money for actual treatment." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here. To offer a different kind of help." I laid out my proposal. I would pay for Ryan's rehabilitation program, directly to the facility, not to them. I would cover the minimum payments on their legitimate debts during his treatment to prevent total financial collapse. But there were conditions. You need to move out of this house, I told them. It's being foreclosed on anyway because of the fraudulent second mortgage. I've found you a small apartment that I'll pay for during treatment. It's furnished, so you won't need much. Ryan looked up. And after treatment? After treatment, you get jobs. Real jobs. You make a budget. You live within your means. I'll help with a security deposit on a new place, but that's it. No more monthly support. No more bailouts. And if we refuse? Amber asked, her voice hard. I met her gaze steadily. Then I pressed charges for the forgery and fraud. The police already have the report. I'm just holding off on pursuing it. You'd send your own brother to jail? She challenged. If that's what it takes to stop enabling his addiction? Yes. I turned to Ryan. I've been helping you destroy yourself for years. That stops today. Real help means tough love. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. What about Amber? While I'm in rehab? I hadn't expected that question. The apartment is for both of you. The job connections I've made are for both of you. But my financial support is contingent on you getting treatment, Ryan. Amber's face flushed with anger. So I'm just supposed to sit around in some cheap apartment while he's in rehab? What about my needs? Her reaction told me everything I needed to know about her commitment to Ryan's recovery. Your needs? I repeated. Ryan is drowning in addiction and debt, and you're worried about having to live in an apartment that isn't up to your standards? Don't talk to her like that, Ryan said, but the defense lacked conviction. I stood up, brushing off my pants. The offer stands. Rehabilitation. A temporary place to live. Help finding jobs. A fresh start. But you have to choose it, Ryan. Both of you do. And the house? Ryan asked. The house is gone, I said simply. Between the damage you've done and the legal mess of the fraudulent mortgage, it'll probably be sold at auction eventually. Whatever equity remains after that is a discussion for another day. I handed Ryan a folder containing information on the rehabilitation program, the apartment details, and the names of contacts who could help with employment. Your intake appointment is Monday. You have until then to decide. As I turned to leave, Ryan called after me. Why are you doing this? After everything I've done? I paused, looking back at my little brother, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd consoled after his first heartbreak, the young man I'd promised our dying parents I would always look after. Because you're my brother, I said simply. And I love you too much to help you destroy yourself anymore. With that, I got in my car and drove away, leaving them to make what might be the most important decision of their lives. I didn't know if they would accept my offer. I didn't know if our relationship could ever be repaired. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was truly helping rather than enabling. That night I didn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a text or call that didn't come. Had I been too harsh? Not harsh enough? Was I still trying to control the situation instead of letting Ryan take responsibility? The following morning, as I was getting ready for work, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Ryan. I'll be there Monday. Alone. Alone. That single word contained volumes. I texted back a simple, I'll pick you up at 9. Then sat on the edge of my bed, overcome with emotion. Relief that he had chosen treatment. Concern about what, alone, meant for him and Amber. Hope that this might be the beginning of his recovery. Fear that it might not work. Monday came, and I picked Ryan up at a motel where he'd apparently been staying. His few possessions were packed in 2 duffel bags. There was no sign of Amber. She left, he said as we drove toward the rehabilitation center. Said she didn't sign up to be married to someone in rehab. Said she could do better. I wanted to say good riddance but held my tongue. I'm sorry, I offered instead. Ryan shrugged, staring out the window. Don't be. You were right about her. About a lot of things. The admission hung between us, neither an apology nor an absolution, but a beginning. At the rehabilitation center, I helped him check in, met briefly with his assigned counselor, and then faced the moment of goodbye. We stood awkwardly in the lobby, years of hurt and betrayal making even a simple farewell complicated. "I don't know if I can do this," Ryan admitted, fear evident in his voice. "You can't," I assured him. "And when you struggle, remember you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for Mom and Dad too. They always believed in you, Ryan." "So do I." He nodded, blinking back tears. "I'll call when they allow phone privileges." "I'll be waiting," I promised. As I walked back to my car alone, I felt lighter somehow. The burden I'd carried for years hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed. For the first time since our parents died, I wasn't responsible for making Ryan's life work. I was just responsible for being his brother. And that was enough. 3 months passed, marking the transition from winter to spring. The snow melted, revealing green shoots pushing through the soil, nature's own symbol of renewal and second chances. Ryan completed the intensive 30-day rehabilitation program and transitioned to outpatient treatment, moving into the small apartment I had arranged. True to my word, I paid the rent directly to the landlord and helped him connect with a job counselor who specialized in addiction recovery employment. Our relationship was fragile, tentative, like those spring seedlings, vulnerable to frost but determined to grow. We spoke on the phone weekly, our conversations gradually becoming less awkward, more genuine. He attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week and had a sponsor named Bill who had 15 years of sobriety. "It's hard," Ryan admitted during one of our calls. "Looking at the wreckage and knowing I caused it. The debt. The relationships. The fraud. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just run away and start over somewhere else." "But you're not running," I pointed out. "That takes courage. Or I just have nowhere to run to," he said with a self-deprecating laugh. The house was eventually sold at auction, as I had predicted. After the original mortgage was satisfied, there was a small amount left over. I had my lawyer split it equally between us, sending Ryan's portion directly to a financial counselor who was helping him create a repayment plan for his legitimate debts. Amber had indeed left him, filing for divorce just weeks after he entered treatment. She attempted to claim half of his portion from the house sale, but since there was documentation of her involvement in the fraud, she quickly backed down when my lawyer got involved. As for me, I was undergoing my own form of rehabilitation. At Marcus's insistence, I started seeing a therapist who specialized in codependency and family systems. "You've been parenting your brother since you were children," Dr. Melissa Kim told me during one session. "When your parents died, that role became your entire identity. Letting go of it is like grieving a death, the death of how you've defined yourself for a decade." She was right. Without the constant stress of managing Ryan's life, I felt oddly adrift. Who was Ethan Mitchell when he wasn't sacrificing everything for his brother? What did he want? What brought him joy? I started small, signing up for a cooking class I'd always been interested in but never had time for. Reconnecting with college friends I'd lost touch with during the years of focusing solely on work and Ryan. Updating my apartment with furniture and art I actually liked, rather than the bare minimum furnishings I'd made do with while sending money elsewhere. 6 weeks into my therapy journey, Dr. Kim suggested I attend a support group for families of addicts. "It helps to know you're not alone," she said. "That other people understand the specific challenges you've faced." That's where I met Claire Foster. She was 30, a social worker with kind eyes and a quick wit who had grown up with an alcoholic father and a brother with substance abuse issues. Unlike me, she had learned boundaries early, working in the field partly to understand her family dynamics better. "The first time I refused to bail my brother out of jail was the hardest day of my life," she told me after my first meeting when a group of us went for coffee. "I cried for hours. But it was also the day he finally decided to get help. Sometimes love looks like walking away." Claire and I began meeting for coffee regularly, then dinner. She understood parts of my experience that even Marcus, for all his support, couldn't fully grasp. She never judged my past enabling nor my current struggles with setting boundaries. And she made me laugh, really laugh, for the first time in years. 2 months after meeting Claire, I invited Ryan to have dinner with us. It was their first time meeting, and I was nervously optimistic. Ryan was now working part-time at a local bookstore, a far cry from the high-powered business career he'd once envisioned, but he seemed to genuinely enjoy the peaceful environment and the discount on recovery literature. "So," Ryan said after the initial awkward small talk had subsided, "you're the one helping my brother figure out he has a life beyond babysitting me." Claire smiled. "Actually, I think he's figuring that out all on his own. I'm just enjoying watching the process." The dinner wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, old hurts that surfaced in certain phrases or looks, but it was real. Authentic in a way my relationship with Ryan hadn't been for years. As we neared the 1-year anniversary of that fateful New Year's Eve, Ryan asked if we could meet at his apartment. He had just received his 9-month sobriety chip and wanted to share the moment. His apartment was small but meticulously kept. On the wall hung a framed photo I recognized immediately, the last picture of our family together at his high school graduation. The one he had kept when he sold or destroyed everything else. "I have something for you," he said, handing me a small box. Inside was our mother's wedding ring, the one I had seen him pawning months earlier. "How did you?" I began, emotion catching in my throat. "I've been setting aside a little money from each paycheck," he explained. "The pawn shop owner remembered me. He held it when I explained and let me make payments." He looked down, suddenly vulnerable. "I know it doesn't make up for everything else I sold. The clock, the silver, they're gone. But this felt important to get back." I carefully placed the ring back in its box. "Thank you. This means more than you know." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Ryan spoke again. "I never properly apologized to you, Ethan. For everything. The stealing, the lies, the way I treated you that night." He met my eyes steadily. "I'm sorry. Truly sorry." "I know you are," I said. "And I forgive you." "Just like that?" I shook my head. "Not just like that. It's taken time. Therapy. Distance. Understanding my own role in enabling you. But yes, I forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay you," he admitted. "Not just the money, but everything you sacrificed." "I don't need repayment," I told him. "I just need you to live a good life. A healthy life. That's how you can honor what I did, by not needing me to do it anymore." On New Year's Eve, exactly 1 year after the confrontation that had changed everything, Ryan, Claire, and I stood on the balcony of my apartment watching fireworks explode across the night sky. We each held a mug of hot chocolate. Ryan's sobriety meant we all abstained from alcohol in his presence, a small sacrifice that felt like nothing compared to his daily battle. "I never thanked you," Ryan said suddenly. "For what?" I asked. "For cutting me off that night. For refusing to enable me anymore." He kept his eyes on the bursting colors above us. "If you had kept paying the bills, kept rescuing me, I'd probably be dead by now. Or wishing I was." Claire squeezed my hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of how difficult that decision had been. "Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is stop trying to protect people from their own choices," I said. "I had to learn that the hard way." As midnight approached and the new year beckoned, I reflected on the profound lesson of the past 12 months, that true worth isn't measured in financial provision or self-sacrifice. That sometimes walking away is the greatest act of love. That enabling isn't kindness, it's a slow-motion tragedy. Ryan had lost nearly everything: his marriage, his home, his creditworthiness, many of his possessions, but had gained something far more valuable: himself. His authentic self, facing life without the numbing escape of gambling or the cushion of my constant bailouts. And I had gained something too: the freedom to live my own life. The joy of a relationship based on mutual respect rather than dependence. The knowledge that I could love deeply without losing myself in the process. As the clock struck midnight and cheers erupted across the city, The three of us raised our mugs in a toast. To boundaries, Claire suggested with a smile. To second chances, Ryan added. To worthy love, I finished. The kind that helps us grow, not the kind that keeps us small. The fireworks continued to paint the sky with brilliant, fleeting beauty, temporary explosions of light that nevertheless changed the darkness. Much like the painful journey of the past year, I thought. Brief moments of intense difficulty that had permanently altered the landscape of our lives. For the better. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between helping someone and enabling them? What did you decide, and how did it turn out? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more real-life lessons, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is step back and let people face their own choices. Thank you for joining me on this journey of healing and growth.